Let's get started. So when we're talking about a production facility, and it's obviously biggest thing is just we want to produce our or take our produced hydrocarbons and separate them out so we can sell them. That's the biggest thing. Whether we've got crude and gas and water, or if we have gas, NGLs, water. And when I say NGLs, a lot of people refer to them as condensates in our industry. Technically, they can be called a lot of different things, but most people just throw them all in. If it's pretty clear, they call it a condensate, which, you know, right or wrong, doesn't matter. But the whole idea is to be able to sell our stuff, remove the contaminants. And I've seen, through a lot of the design classes that I've taught, people are always trying to design these fancy things. The biggest thing is to design it the most minimal and cost-effective way, and I guess you guys would probably understand this more than the students that are still in school because they're the ones usually trying to get real fancy. Uh, the minimal way that we can still sell it, or it's still going to meet specs to dispose of, if it's drilling waste, or I guess that wouldn't be our purview here, but water to be able to dispose it or inject it into the subsurface. What do we have to do that? So we'll talk a little bit about each of these, but our initial well stream is going to come in, get separated into these three gas streams, or these three streams: gas, oil, and water, providing we have all of those present. So when we're processing gas, what are we trying to get rid of? What's the biggest things that we're trying to get rid of? So a lot of times, and I don't think it's so important to know whether something is a contaminant or a pollutant, but I would say just about the only, let me check and make sure I didn't include that. Okay, I didn't. The only difference, I would say, pollutants are more something that has a little bit of toxicity to it. So I don't know that you would see a question on that, but you're basically trying to we got to get rid of the water vapor. We have to get rid of the acid gases, which are hydrogen sulfide and carbon dioxide, any entrained free water, liquid hydrocarbons. And obviously the liquid hydrocarbons, whether you're talking about whatever you're talking about, the C5s plus, IC4, whatever it is, you can make more money if they're in the liquid form anyway. So that's important to you. And then when you look at the intermediates and light ends, and where we're talking about those, where your intermediates, some people will include propane, but maybe more like normal and isobutane, pentanes, maybe propane. Those are all things that are increasing your heating value of gas, and you have a certain spec you need to meet. Plus, if you're including those heavier hydrocarbons in there, you're selling more BTU value than what you're getting paid for. And it also has the opportunity to condense in pipelines, cause corrosion, plugging in low spots, so you don't have the full diameter of the pipe open to gas flow. So those are other things that you want to get out of there. You'll still be pigging at times, but more than likely, or ideally, you want to get most of it out of there. Other hydrocarbon liquids, you could have lube oil, inhibitors, and methanol a lot of times injected in there for the purposes of preventing hydrates and stuff. There's just a lot of other things that could be present. Solids, sand, clays, rust, sludges, any of that. Those are all the things we want to get out of there. We don't want to put those into the pipeline. They're not, our specs certainly are not going to allow us to do that. Oil treating, we just basically want to stabilize the crude. We want to be able to put it into storage and ship it down the pipeline or in the trucks. We also need to get rid of emulsions. So we'll talk a lot more about emulsions, but basically, it's water droplet. A normal emulsion in the oil field is water droplets tied up in oil, and we all know that we have certain basic sediments and water guidelines that if we pass that percentage, and it really depends on what part of the country you're in or what your specs say, but if we pass those, we can't sell our oil. It's bad oil and it starts piling up. So typically it's between 0.2 and 0.5%, depending on your contract specifications. It also depends on if you're up north, um, more problems with more water or sludges. So it's all dependent on your contract. And that BS&W is just basic sediments in water. No matter what you've heard in the field, I know there's a lot of other lovely names for it, but that's what it really stands for.